So let's move on to practical tips. I'm sure all of you are here because of this, all right? And given that, we have only about 20 days to go before the tax deadline arrives, so let's quickly delve into this. These are basically simple tips that you can take on this year as well as next year, okay? Firstly is that it's very simple. Use tax software. When we say use tax software, means use the e-filing system, okay? It's very, very simple, all right? If you have done it before, you find that all the details are actually captured in the following year. They actually carry forward, and you just need to check your personal details, all right? And then you can fill in all your income and your reliefs. And the best thing is, if you're an employee, the monthly tax deduction is also there already. You don't even need to fill in. All you need to do is check whether it's consistent with the monthly tax deduction stated on your Form EA, all right? And it's incredibly simple, and it's on real time, and you submit it. If your tax position is up to date, they can even tell you that you have outstanding tax from the previous year. Yeah. So you can actually file it anywhere through mobile devices. How many of you have smartphones? You can actually file it through your smartphones, So there's no excuse for not meeting the 30th April deadline. That's what the tax authorities is trying to tell you, because you have all these mobile devices to actually help you to file the return. Okay, this is basically a snapshot, and you can go into MBE to file your tax returns via your mobile devices as well. Okay. So this is the eHasil website, and you can file not just Form BE, you can file B for those with business source income, and Form BT as well for those who are knowledge workers or Malaysians who are on the returning expert program, so they have a separate return. Okay. The other tip is, of course, make reference to RB's tax rulings or public rulings. I think, as what Hilda has mentioned earlier, public rulings, right, were introduced at the point when self-assessment was introduced, okay? It's actually the interpretation, it sets out the interpretation of the tax authorities on how you should supposed to treat certain taxable items, okay? And why it's helpful is that the tax authorities have come up with very, very comprehensive examples, all right, that will help you to understand how that item is treated. So it's very enlightening when you read those examples. So it's not just setting out the tax treatment, but they give you examples on how the tax treatment is applied. So please do go to the website, right, and read some of the rulings. They are in PDF format, so you can download them anytime. Okay, and they are constantly updating it. So if there's a revision or a change in the tax law, the public ruling will also be revised to reflect this change accordingly. Okay. So these are some of the public rulings. Okay, they deal with benefits in kind provided by employer, perquisites, share schemes, taxation of unit holders of REITs, or what you do when you receive compensation for loss of employment, resident status. So embedded in all these public rulings are examples. Okay, that's why you find that some of the public rulings when you download is very, very thick. Okay, it's not because they are trying to explain the law, but it's more of giving you examples. Examples that laymen, you and myself can understand. All right, that's the whole purpose of the public ruling. Okay, so it's to aid you when you prepare your own tax return. So the other thing is you need to be very organized. All right, you need to keep all your receipts from day one, January. Our fiscal year, our tax year runs from January to December. So from January to December, you have to start collecting the receipts. Your book receipts, your computer receipts, your life insurance, all right? And for those of you who earn rental income, your rental expenses, maintenance, upkeep, quick rent and assessment, all those things you need to file it in properly, okay? You know, if you scramble at the last minute, you may not find all these documentation. And these supporting documentations are very important because when you have a tax audit, they are going to rely on all this documentation to prove, you know, the deductions that you have claimed. Okay? Now you find that sometimes you may find, you know, the book receipts, right? You know, after 1 year it fades. So my suggestion is that, or even your credit card receipts, you photocopy the receipts. You know, when you get it, photocopy it. So at least it's visible when, in case if they ask for audit, you can still show it to them. Okay? So these are just some of the examples. Even your dividend vouchers, if it's single tier doesn't mean that you don't need to keep, but you still need to keep and, you know, properly file them. Your donation receipts, your book receipts. So these are some of the examples. The other thing is that we would like to talk about is combined assessment. You know what combined assessment means? It basically means that the income of your spouse is combined together with yours. Now, in general, you know, everyone files their own tax returns separately, all right, unless you elect for a combined assessment, right? Now, in what circumstances should you elect for a combined assessment? When your spouse income is less than 3,000 ringgit in a year, that's when you should combine the income, okay? Because by you combining the income, you can get a 3,000 ringgit relief, okay, for spouse. The other circumstances will be when your combined income with your spouse, right, does not exceed 35,000 ringgit together. If they don't exceed 35,000 ringgit, you can actually claim a rebate of 400 ringgit each, so it's 800 ringgit tax rebate. And this tax rebate is offsetted against your tax liability, okay, which I will speak on a little bit later as well. So these are the two circumstances generally when people combine the assessment together. Okay. So when you file your tax return, if you look at the top part here, right, you have to describe what type of assessment you're filing. Is it joint in the name of the husband, or joint in the name of the wife, or if you're not electing for combined assessment, it will be separate, right? And then what happens is that under each of the form, whether it's form BE or form B, there's a section which says that total income transferred from husband or wife for joint assessment. This is the part where you have to include that income in here, right? So if it's under your name, your spouse income will then come under this line. Okay. Okay. So what's the most lawful way to actually lower your tax liability? Is to take advantage of all the deductions, the reliefs, you know, and the, like what Hilda has mentioned earlier, the tax exempt benefits provided by employer to lower your tax liability overall, right? Now I'll just touch on the personal tax relief and also deductions, okay? So I'm sure all of you know this, okay? You would have claimed self-relief when you file your tax return. That's actually automatically given as well in the tax return. And then if your wife is not working and electing for combined assessment, or you're paying alimony to your wife, you can actually claim another relief of 3,000 ringgit, okay? Disabled individuals and disabled spouses also you can get additional relief. And if you have children, okay? If you have children below the age of 18, right? Then you can claim 1,000 ringgit per child. And if those that are studying overseas, all right, or receiving studying in Malaysia, okay, pursuing tertiary education, you can actually claim a relief of 6,000 ringgit per child. Okay, what if your child earns income? Can you claim a child relief? What do you think? If the child's income is more than the relief, you can't claim the child relief at all. So the child has to file his own tax return and declare the income. Yeah. Okay. So for those who are employees, you all would have contributed to EPF. So you can also claim an additional amount of 6,000 ringgit, okay, as relief. If you have private life insurance, so it's combined together with EPF and the maximum is only 6,000. For those who are contributing to PRS, there's an additional relief of 3,000 as mentioned by Hilda earlier, okay? And if you have, you take out insurance premium for medical benefits or, education insurance for your children, where the beneficiary is your child, then you can also claim a relief of 3,000 ringgit, right? And when you talk about medical expenses for your parents, you can also claim that. If you provide carer for your parents, right? Like for example, Indonesian maids to care for your parents, your aged parents primarily, you can also claim, but it's up to a maximum of 5,000 ringgit only. Similarly, if yourself or spouse is suffering from serious disease, right, you can claim 5,000 ringgit. When they talk about serious disease, it would be those like heart disease, cancer, those muscular disease, so it's quite serious ones. And all this, as you can see, it must be supported by receipts and documentary evidence. No doubt you do not need to give this documentary evidence to the tax authorities. You need to still keep it for how many years? 7 years, that's right. Okay. Actually, you think about it, right? I was just, one of my clients was just commenting to me. He says that, in Malaysia, you all are very lucky. You all got so many reliefs to claim. Overseas, they only have spouse, child, and themselves only to claim. They don't have so many reliefs like us. So he always say we are very lucky to have. The government's very generous with us. Tax rates are high. Well, you should see what the tax rates are in other countries. So you have purchase of sports equipment. So you can claim for things like tennis balls, but not tennis shoes, okay? Tennis rackets and all that. So it depends on what equipment is defined in the Sports Development Act. Okay? So you can claim up to 300 ringgit. So you need to have a receipt to prove that. If you're pursuing further education in Malaysia, like an MBA, all right, you can also claim a deduction of 5,000 ringgit. And of course, that has to be supported by the receipt for the fees that's paid. Okay, let's go on to books and magazines. Now, that's the one that you always collect all the receipts, right? To make sure that you hit the maximum of 1,000 ringgit. Okay, I will tell you that, do you think newspaper qualify or not? No, so sorry. So if you buy Star paper on a month, you can't claim the relief for this, okay? Okay, so the other thing is, of course, purchase of computers. If you buy a notebook or you buy a desktop, you can claim the relief for 3,000 up to 3,000 ringgit every 3 years. But if it's an iPad, no, tax authorities have disallowed that. They do not see that as computers. Okay, so they have actually recently issued a statement to say that you cannot claim iPads as computer, really.